the pressures of the Cold War, the old Atomic Energy Commission did not give much thought to race relations when choosing to put its new H-bomb facility in South Carolina. That oversight has haunted the Savannah River Site for the past 60 years and still does today. Racial discrimination has plagued the Savannah River Site since its inception. When it first opened to produce nuclear weapons to fuel the Cold War, African American laborers were sent into the site's most dangerous areas. 60 years later, African Americans face professional dangers, such as immobility in the workplace. In 2009, even the Savannah River Site manager, Jeffrey Allison, was moved out of his position. Whatever way you slice it, racism is present.
At one point, for a slight inkling of time, I kind of thought that the world was heading towards a better place. And quickly, I realized it wasn't.
Meet the Lindsay family, a father, a mother, and their 10 children leading busy, ordinary lives in Greenwood, South Carolina in the 1950s. That was until Mr. Lindsay's new job turned their world upside down. It was the one decision to work at the bomb plant that changed their lives forever.
And he never had any knowledge going into that job that these risks to his health and his life and his family were there for him.
Mr. Lindsay was a principal at a black high school. When the Savannah River Site offered him a better paycheck, he took it, besides the fact that the commute would be hours long. The lengthy drive turned out to be the least of the job's downsides.
He left primarily because he would be paid more.
Right.
And with a family of 10 children, 10 children and a wife who was a homemaker.
Right.
And his responsibility was to provide. And I'm certain that he did not realize the risks that were involved. I can't imagine.
Like Mr. Lindsay, the other African Americans hired to be labor workers did not view the job as a death threat. They were not told the plant could expose them to dangerous levels of radiation.
The sacrificial lambs are people like Beulah's father and her family, and these people have ripples out into the community.
All anyone knew was that the job was highly regarded and brought in good money.
I mean, it was a prestigious job, supposedly at that time. But I think when you lose sight of that also as a human being, and this could be anyone who's doing the same thing, trying to sacrifice, trying to make a living for his or her family.
The signs of Mr. Lindsay's radiation exposure showed up early.
I think he started in 52. In 54, he was crying about, he was down there talking about the bronchitis and nose and all the respiratory problem that he was having.
The longer Mr. Lindsay spent working at the Savannah River Site, the sicker he became. His children watched as a job that was paying for their livelihood killed their father.
I remember his being sick. I remember his getting up in the middle of the night and throwing up blood in the bathroom, and I remember we had wallpaper, and it was always one little spot. I used to stare at it. Stay there.
They discovered the rash on him, and that rash is definitely an indication of internal exposure to something that is foreign and harmful.
My father had been sick for many, many years, working sick.
He was locked in the situation.
After years of ignoring his symptoms, SRS management brought Mr. Lindsay home from work one day to die.
Our mother would drive to the hospital, and we would be left in the car because we couldn't go in. We were very young, and she would open his curtains so we could see him in his room
And wave.
And wave. Yeah.
12 years after making the decision to work at the bomb plant, Mr. Lindsay died.
He was the youngest of 13 and probably one of the youngest to die in his family.
The African American workers at the Savannah River Site were not given the same opportunities as the white workers to protect themselves from radiation. They were sometimes told to leave their badges that measured exposure levels at the door so they could work longer in dangerous areas. The white workers had separate laundry facilities to wash their exposed clothing, while the black workers did not.
All I knew is that my father got cancer as a result of working at the bomb plant. That's, and his mom would often say, because she would get very angry when she talked about it, she said, they killed Rob, they killed Rob.
At this point in time, Mr. Lindsay is not the only member of the family that has been lost to cancer. Mrs. Lindsay and 2 of the children fell to the same fate.
My mother was a great homemaker. And, I mean, we, talking about the 5 food groups, I mean, we were taught to eat so-called correctly way before it became something, you know, a common thing. I mean, from day one. I mean, so, and we were taught to exercise, take care of our bodies. I mean, so there's no reason, and we never smoke, never drink. I mean, that's just something that we never saw it in the house, and we never did it. And we were very close to our father, particularly the older ones, spending a lot of time with him and being around him, washing his clothes, this kind of thing, because, I mean, that's what you did. And there were 10 children. My mother couldn't do it all. So all of us participated and had our responsibilities. There is no plausible reason to me why my sister Jo is not here today and had breast cancer.
But the healthy foods the Lindsay children were eating sometimes came from the leftover farms from the towns that were relocated to construct the Savannah River Site.
They had food out there and hunting. And those people used to go out there and hunt and get deer and stuff like that. They would hunt off these places where they buried and drank the stream from. They'd get food. My father would bring it home all the time. They would sell it by the roadside. They would let the people go out there and hunt and get those things.
If you don't have a high regard for a certain kind of people, then you're apt to put them into situations that's not good for their life. And those who are not African Americans perhaps will be more in the know. So they don't want the jobs. So physically, none of the jobs are tough. But if you don't know the exposure is a long-term thing, I mean, all you know is make good money. I mean, you don't know.
Councilman Willer Hightower was the first African-American recruited from college to work at a programming lab at the Savannah River Site. He says he was lucky he was not a laborer working in the plant.
A lot of them got exposed, and some of them got exposed and exceeded the limit, and they kept them in the job.
Hightower was the only African-American worker in the programming lab, and he was kept away from those at the plant.
Anytime 2 or more African Americans got together, they were concerned. I mean, they want to know what you're doing, what's going on over there. I mean, what y'all doing, you know? We always had that. I mean, that much of that hadn't changed yet, and because they just want to know what you're doing. And the only reason I say that they want to know what you're doing because they've done you so bad until they can't figure out that you're not plotting against them.
Hightower had been working at the site for years when he noticed he was no longer receiving promotions.
You know, at some point you just hit a ceiling, and just nothing's happened, and you feel things shifting. For example, I have been rated very high, you know, as high as you could be rated, and in far as performance. And then I wasn't rated as high, although my challenges I felt were just as significant as they were before.
Hightower says he eventually realized racial discrimination was to blame and that it was plaguing all departments of the Savannah River Site. Hightower and others filed for a class action suit in 1998.
Each person would have experiences that they would share with others, and so we were able to get sort of a hodgepodge of categories of concern.
Hightower ended up retiring in 2000 and receiving a $50,000 settlement. However, the lawsuit did not seem to stop the Savannah River Site from discriminating against African American workers. Christy Johnson fell victim to this when she, like Hightower, sought a promotion.
I see paper, what's on paper, what do they know? That's all I see, that's all I know. So when I came to the South, it wasn't about your education. It's so hard to say and it's sad to say, but I really found out what race and what my color meant when I came to the South.
As a California native, Johnson says she never experienced racial discrimination until she moved to work for the mixed oxide program at the Savannah River Site. She was the first in her family to finish college, and she says she was feeling confident in the workplace.
Well, now I had a little bit more, that I thought was going to take me far. But I quickly realize that the South and the West are two different places.
Johnson was working in contracts but had a degree in information technology and was looking for a job in that department. When positions opened up, she decided to apply. 6 months and multiple emails later, she still hadn't heard back.
Here goes my resume, here's my transcripts. You know, you're asking for this, this, and this, and I have this. So, I mean, am I going to get an opportunity to be interviewed? He never would respond.
Johnson soon found out that the people being hired did not have her same credentials.
So after talking to a couple of guys, and I started realizing that they didn't have an education, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. Something's going on. Point blank, because I was black.
Johnson went to the Human Resources Department as well as the higher-ups seeking help, but everyone turned their heads. She filed an Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaint and faced consequences for that action.
Every week there was some complaint. Like, you know, it was as simple as sometime one day one of the guys in my group came to me and said, hey, you don't have a 1-inch margin on this letter. I think it was off by like a blip. And it just went on from there. I mean, every time I turned around, it was always something.
Johnson says they were trying to get her to leave, but she was determined to stay, until one day they made the decision for her.
The HR manager leans over, he said, Christy, we're going to have to let you go today. We're going to terminate you. And I was emotionally ready, but I was not ready. I mean, when he said it, it's like my heart dropped to my stomach.
Johnson says the discrimination did not end there.
In my opinion, I think they thought they were going to embarrass me by having the police stand outside my cube and, you know, all these boxes standing over me. So when I walked out of my boss's office, I grabbed my baby's picture, and by the time he came out, I was ready to go. He said, oh, you're done? I said, yeah, I'm ready. And, you know, he walked me out, and when we got in the elevator, my boss was like, you know, Christy, I'm really sorry this happened to you. He was visibly upset. He said, but you knew it was going to happen when you started messing with them.
The EEOC decided Johnson was not promoted because of her race.
I started thinking about all the people out there that were afraid to talk, and they can't do this. They can't keep doing this. You know, this is not right. It's not fair. I think they need to be brought to justice, whatever justice may be. They're not going to get away with this. And that's when, you know, I filed the suit in federal court.
Johnson received an undisclosed settlement soon after this interview was conducted, but that doesn't mean she is no longer affected by her experience at the Savannah River Site.
I'm just, you know, down in here, I just know I'm hurt, and I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I feel like I'm equal.
Many Savannah River Site workers and their families are still fighting for their rights.
Yes, our parents, you know, and we owe that to them. And but more than that, I mean, we owe to society, we owe to the future, and we have to, you know, when something is wrong, we should address it.
The Lindsay family, Councilman Hightower and Christy Johnson, all of their stories are different, but one common thread is the same. Jim Crow has yet to be put to rest at the Savannah River Site. I'm Amy Littman, reporting from Washington for DC Bureau.